Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem and Bruchim Abam. We're continuing Mishnah Berura, Daf Hashavua, Siman Kuf Nun Aleph. We're middle of Seif Aleph. The Mechaber said that Talmidei Chachamim and their Talmidim are allowed to eat and drink in the Shul midoichak. And then the Ramal says, V'yei shoymrim to the Beis HaMedrash afilu shaloi midoichak shari. Says the Mishnah Berura Seif Katan Tes, Shari, Ayin Belavush Ubach, Shemetzadedin Kein Ladina, V'chein Nira She'ein Lahachmir La'anoshim Shalom Dim Sham Kal Hayom. That people who learn there all day, Ein Lahachmir. So it's not midoichek, it's meikra din. The Mechaber continued, Ein mechashbin v'hen cheshbonos elam keim hein shel mitzvah. We don't make calculations unless it's of mitzvah, kagoin kupa shel tzedakah, upidyon shvuyim. Ve'ein maspidin b'hem, we don't eulogize, ela im kein yeh ha'hesped le'echad megdoyle ha'ir, shekol b'nei ha'ir miskabtzinu bam laspidai. We don't eulogize unless it's a eulogy for one of the great people of the city, that all the people of the city gather there to eulogize. Says Mishna ha'ir shemeis kroivai shel hagadol. Let's say a relative of the leader of the city passed away, and because of that, many people are coming to the eulogy. Especially if the hesped is on a Talmid Chacham. What's the reason why we were masped them in the Beis HaKnesses? Rashi says in Masechet Megillah Chav Chesam Beis that since rabbim need to gather there because of the chashivas of the niftar or the karov, it's appropriate to do in the shul because it houses everyone. What if the niftar is not a Talmid Chacham or a relative, but many are coming to eulogize him? Then there's no heter. Only for a Talmid Chacham or a relative of a Talmid Chacham. So even though the Mechaber said le'echad mi gedoylei ha'ir, shekol b'nei or miskabtzin, Le'echad mi gedoyle doesn't mean you're eulogizing one of the Talmid Chacham, you're eulogizing a relative of the Talmid Chacham. And because of this, many people come for the hesped. But the Ben Ish Chai says, only for the Talmid Chacham or his relative, not an important person. I mean, I've seen cases where, somebody was a philanthropist and they eulogized him in the shul. I don't know if that was, lahalacha, or that was just in order to keep their institution open. But in other words, I don't know, the Lashon of the Mechaber Gedoylem, I don't know if that means the Talmid Chacham. I don't know if the word Gadol in the Mechaber is referring to what we refer to as Gedoylem, but certainly the Ben Ish Chai in the Rav Pa'alim understood it that way. What about, could you bring the bear, the coffin, into the Beis Medrash? Shulchan Aruch says in Yardei Siman Shemem Daled, only like a Gadol Hadar, you could bring the meat into the Beis Medrash. The Chachmas Adam says you shouldn't do this, only for a Goyin, a Chassid, and Yachid B'Doirei like the Gra. Because we don't have in our generation someone who's Chacham Aleph a Goyin. Rav Shlomo Zalman said about himself not to bring his Arayin into the Beis Medrash. But the Taras Chaim writes, the minhag is to bring the meat of the Rav or the Talmid Chacham to the Beis HaKnesses if he was a tzaddik and he taught L'Shem Shamayim, because of Kavrat Torah, Yiftach B'Dari Kishmoda, which is generally the minhag, that they do bring in the Rosh Hashiva into the Beis Medrash, even B'Daireinu. The Shas Chus Malamed Lahayo, Rabbi David Tzvi Hoffman brings that the minhag in Hungary was to bring the Aron of the Rav into the Beis HaKnesses, and they did that for Rabbi Kiva Eger and the Ksav Sofer, and I think Bizman Hazeh they do that as well. Okay. Ha'ari Haya nizar ma'oid shaloi ledaber b'veis hakneses rak tfilasai. The Arizal was very careful not to speak in a shul, only his prayer. Afilu divrei musar loy diber, pen yimashech mimenu divrei chal. Even words of musar he wouldn't speak, lest it be drawn into idle conversation. So it's interesting that the Mishnah Berura brings this hanhaga here in Sivkat and Yud by talking about Dinei Hesped. Why didn't he bring it in Sivkat and Beis when he talked about the Isser of Sichas Chulin? I would humbly suggest it's because he just said that you're allowed to be maspid, a relative of Talmid Chacham, or even a Talmid Chacham. Now a hesped is not divrei Torah, it's divrei Musar. So the Mishnah Berura is pointing out, by the way, just letting you know, that the Ari was makbid not even to say divrei Musar. So maybe the Ari would not be maspid, a Talmid Chacham. Maybe that's the connection. In other words, why did the Mishnah Berura select to tell us this hanhaga dafka over here in Sivkat and Yud? Because he's saying you should be careful because it's not pasha that divrei musar has an outright heter. The Dirshu brings that Arizal never was mazhir other people not to talk in a shul. Just he personally was careful. The Sefer Charedim brings that was the Kabbalah, that was the practice of two Mikubalim, the Ari and the Ramak, only to speak in the basic Knesset as divrei Torah. V'gadol haminog. Why are we now? That means me'ikar hadin. We're not worried that it's going to be drawn into divrei chayil. Now it's interesting. The Mishnah Berura says he was only zahir. He was zahir not to speak divrei tefillah. He was zahir only to daven, but divrei musar he didn't speak. Now the Mishnah Berura doesn't say he learned, so you could have said maybe he didn't learn either. The Charedim says that he only spoke divrei Torah. Earlier the Mishnah Berura said that, by the way, even though the Torah's Chaim said that the Ari himself was zahir, but he didn't tell anyone else to do this, the Mishnah Berura did tell us to do this. The Mishnah Berura we saw yesterday in Sivkat and Gimel said, Hayore v'hachare l'dvar Hashem, Yasim tamid einav v'libay, shaloi l'daber shum dvarim b'telim beis haknes beis hamedrash. V'hamakim hazeh yeh miyuchad rak l'tayra v'l'tfila. So the Mishnah Berura said that even a non-Arizal person should be careful only to talk dvar. You should be miyached the shul only for learning and davening.
Hey, that wouldn't include Musar, you see the Mishnah Berura. The Mishnah Berura, you can learn Musar if you say we're different Musar. Sounds like the Ari was further than that.
Yeah, the Mishnah Berura, Mishnah Berura L'shitase brought in Siman Aleph from the Chida that we have a Kabbalah that when Chazal say Barasi Yetzar, Barasi Torah Tavlin, Torah there is referring to Musar. The Arizal had a personal chumrah. It doesn't mean he didn't learn Musar. He didn't speak to others divrei Musar. Like, say, why are you bringing your phone into the shul? Then the guy's going to say, because I have a medical emergency. So the Arizal says, really, maybe I could help you out. So he's afraid it would lead to Sicha B'Tela. But it doesn't mean he didn't learn divrei Musar in the shul. Okay. Weiter. What if you need to enter the shul for your own needs? Kagain likroi la'adam. You need to call someone. So what should you do? So many people like to advertise that they are Amei Haaretz, and what they do is they sit down. But that's not what you should do. What should you do? Yikanis v'yikra ma'at. You should learn a little bit. A yomer dvar shmua, or say a dvar Torah, something you heard, v'achar kach yikra, and then you could call him. Kedei shelo yehei nira ki l'nichnas l'tzarka, so it doesn't appear like that you're entering for your own needs. What if you don't know how to read a pasuk in Chumash? You don't know how to read a Mishna? You should tell one of the children, read to me the pasuk that you're reading. Or just remain there. Staying in the shul is a mitzvah. Shenemar ashrei yoshvei veisecha. So many people like to advertise that they are a complete ignoramus. So when they come into a shul, they sit down. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to sit down. You need to learn. You're not allowed to show people that you're a complete Am Haaretz. You come to the shiur. You're not a complete Am Haaretz. So you should at least try to say a pasuk. Why are you putting yourself in bad light by sitting down and showing people you don't know a pasuk and you don't know a Mishna? You don't do that. Number two, if you sit down, you're mamish a complete Am Haaretz. You know why? Because you don't even know how to read the Mechaber. Because the Mechaber never said to sit. Where'd you get this thing to sit down from? Oh, yeshiva. Pal, read the words. Yisha ma'at. You stay there a little bit. Shaha yeshiva. The word yeshiva means staying, not sitting. Remaining. The word ashrei yoshvei v'sech doesn't mean fortunate are those who sit in your house. It means fortunate are those who remain in your house. Those are the words. Yisha ma'at. So if you come into a shul to call someone and you sit down, you are doubly demonstrating your ame ha'aratzos. First of all, you're supposed to learn, and second of all, there's no concept of sitting. How long should you remain there? V'shir ha'yeshiva k'dei hiluch shnei psachim. The reason why yeshiva is called yeshiva is not because they sit. Traditionally, they always learned. They always stood. It means they remained. And how long should you remain? The amount of time it takes to walk 2 entrances. Ladas hayesh mefarshim b'siman tzadei Seif Siman chaf. Says Mishna Shmua Perush Halacha or Mishna v'achar kach yikren tzolomer aval yakdim akriya mikodim. You shouldn't call him first and then sit. Sheyomer ezad dvar Torah diyanerik damir dvar Torah rak tafel, because then it looks like you're learning a secondary. Now, if you have to call someone in a shul, the Reishis Chachma, the Arach Nem, and the Paliyot says, don't raise your voice. Yankel! Yankel! No, don't, because that shows you don't have Moira min Ashchina. People who sit in the Palestine don't raise their voice. Even if you have to be moicha against those who are doing something improper. Let's say you daven in a shul where they mistakenly allow people to bring in their phone. So even though maybe they should close down, but still, that's not, you can't enforce that. So then, and you have to be moicha that a guy has his phone in, you should still speak to them benachas uvekovid roish. Okay. Kedei hiluch, hainu sheyisha shir hiluch shnei psachim dahainu shmayna tvachim. That is the amount of time that it takes to walk 2 doorways, which is 8 tvachim, which is not a very long time. How long is the shiur? The Shulchan Aruch said earlier, according to the Yesh Mefarshim, you have to wait. That's the amount of time, by the way, that you wait when you come into shul before you start davening. That's basically, and how long does that take? A second. Shniya. It takes a second. In other words, before you call your friend, you stand there for a second. Baruch Shekivanti, says the Aruch HaShulchan, and what position should you be in when you go into the shul? Eina dafka b'yeshiva el yachal kaima gam ba'amida. Ein yeshiva el lashon hakava. Wow. Okay, today's going to be a good day. I was mechavin to the Aruch HaShulchan that you don't have to sit. Okay, I mean, I think that's what the Shulchan Aruch was saying, but the Aruch HaShulchan spells it out. I hadn't seen this, but okay. But the Aruch HaShulchan says you should be mechavein for the mitzvah. You should have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of sitting in a shul, of remaining in a shul. Yeshiva in a shul is a mitzvah. Shenemar asher yeshavesecha. However, the Big Day Yesha disagrees. The Big Day Yesha says, no, you need to be sitting. Otherwise, it's not recognizable that you are that you're first remaining and then you're calling your friend. I guess especially in light of the fact that you only have to stay there a second. So that's certainly not right. It's not going to be clear that you're first being Mekayim the Inyan. So I take it back. You're not necessarily doubly showing your Amei Ha'aratzos. It depends. If you knew the Big Day Yesha, then you know, when somebody says, hey pal, are you such an Amaretz, you don't know a pasuk? At least you could recover, and they're going to say, and you're sitting? Where'd you get that from? You can say, well, don't you know the Big Day Yesha? So at least you could recover on that one. But I don't think that's what the Mechaber means, and the Aruch HaShulchan says that's not what the Mechaber means, but the Big Day Yesha disagrees. Okay, let's call it over here. I want to finish up the Avas Yisrael.